Welcome to Planet Reebok and Trail Mix. At Sportsman's World, try a pair of Reebok outdoor shoes and enter to win a Marin mountain bike. Buy any pair of Reebok outdoor shoes and a tree will be planted in your name during the 93 planting season. Reebok Outdoor, now at Sportsman's World in Kinston, Smithfield Summit, and 402 North Spence Avenue in Goldsboro.
No matter what sport you're into, there's a world of sports at Sportsman's World.
We're the talk of the town, 1150 WGBR, Goldsboro.
From ABC News, I'm Gary Nunn. Alabama's getting a new governor. Lieutenant Governor Jim Folsom Jr. moved up today with a conviction of Republican Guy Hunt on charges that he looted $200,000 from his inaugural fund to pay personal bills. Hunt says,
I'm a fan, though convicted. I feel like I'm totally innocent.
Hunt could be imprisoned for up to 10 years and fined $10,000.
We're strong as a family. We believe in God. And it was a complicated case, and it was hard for the jury to unravel it.
The jury deliberated for about 2 hours over 2 days in reaching the verdict. Folsom will be sworn in this afternoon. The U.S. Holocaust Memorial will be dedicated in Washington, D.C. today. Dedication going on now. The chorus of Alice Neal Junior High School in the District of Columbia performed at the ceremonies. President Clinton tops the list of dignitaries who spoke.
We dedicate the United States Holocaust Museum and so bind one of the darkest lessons in history to the hopeful soul of America.
Chairman Harvey Meyerhoff of the Memorial Council calls the museum a mission of remembrance and education.
On behalf of the Holocaust survivors and the millions whose last request was that their story be told. Zachor, we remember.
The museum is a $168 million exhibition in the heart of the nation's capital. A guard hostage freed last Friday during the prison standoff in southern Ohio says he was forced to pose as a Muslim when he was let go to show unity with the inmates barricaded inside. In Naranja, Florida, a tent city built to house Hurricane Andrew victims is being forced to close. At least 5 heavy thunderstorms have since caused the evacuation of the facility outside St. Anne's Church. You're listening to ABC News.
I just love your new car. It's beautiful.
Oh, thanks, Mom. I just picked it up.
New carpeting, new stereo, new...
What's wrong? Are you okay?
Oh, I thought that guy was going to pull out in front of you.
Mom, he's half a block away. Mom, what are you doing?
Nothing.
Mom, stop pumping. There's no brake pedal there.
I know. You're right. Oh.
What?
That crazy guy over there. Look out for him. He's going to hit your nice new car.
Mom, he's just changing lanes.
Well, you never know. I think he's crazy.
Mom, you're pumping again.
Watch out. That light is going to change.
Yes, it will eventually. Mom, stop grabbing the dashboard.
I can't help it.
This quality time was made possible by Smart Lease from GMAC, the smart way to drive the GM vehicle you want with low monthly payments. Plus, Smart Lease can be arranged by your Chevrolet, Pontiac, Oldsmobile, Buick, Cadillac, or GMC truck dealer in about an hour, because we believe you should be out enjoying your new vehicle instead of waiting for it to be financed. GMAC, the expressway home.
Mom, now you're pumping and grabbing.
I know. Look out!
Disaster teams are removing some of the 41 bodies from what's left of the cult compound near Waco, Texas. Refrigerated trucks will take them to Fort Worth for autopsies, which probably will begin tomorrow. A House subcommittee considering the budget for the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms today questioned BATF Director Stephen Higgins about the wisdom of the original raid that resulted in the siege outside Waco.
There's no one in ATF that I know of that would purposefully lead agents into a situation where they knew they were going to be ambushed. There would be no decision in advance that would say to do that. There would be no plan at the time to do that.
Higgins says the decision to move on the compound February 28th was made by the BATF. Attorney General Janet Reno has promised a Senate subcommittee she will make sure her department is better equipped from now on to deal with cult standoffs in the future.
I want to find the best experts that I can who are credible and reliable on the issue of cults to see what can be done in terms of improving negotiation techniques, if it's possible, in terms of trying to develop plans and strategies for dealing with the recurrence of this situation that led to this horrible tragedy.
we know, is before the Senate panel, which is considering the Justice Department budget for next year. Wall Street, Dow Jones Industrials up 21.86 at 3461.30. The volume, 176,400,000 shares. Trading is heavy. This is ABC News.
Customer comments on PIP printing.
As a purchasing manager, whether I'm buying office supplies or business printing, I'm always looking for the best value. When I called PIP, I knew my search was over. PIP now supplies all our business forms, including carbonless and computer forms. PIP's prices are competitive, and I can order only what we need. You know, just-in-time inventory. For my money, there's no better value than PIP.
PIP Printing, the best business printer in the business.
For the ABC Information Network.
Here are some of today's top WGBR.
Wayne County area translating about 2 weeks behind, but it's finally getting strawberry harvest delayed by as much as 10 days.
For details on these stories and other late-breaking news of Goldsboro and Wayne County, stay tuned to Goldsboro's very own 1150 WGBR.
And your weather from 1150 WGBR. This is the way it goes. It's going to be clear and kind of cold tonight. 35 to 40 for that overnight low. But the sun comes back on Friday. Sunny and warming up tomorrow, high in the low 70s. And the weekend looks pretty good, too, with highs Saturday and Sunday to be in the low to mid-70s.
We're the talk of the town, 1150 WGBR.
Expressed by the host on this show, not necessarily those of the staff, management, nor sponsors of this station. But what the heck? Doesn't matter anyway, because the views expressed by the host of this show are sweeping America. Hundreds of thousands, millions of Americans report testing positive for EIB, an airborne phenomenon spread by casual contact.
This is a special edition of the Rush Limbaugh program, America Held Hostage. And now, from our studios in New York City, here is Rush Limbaugh.
Thank you, John Donovan. Day 93, the raw deal, the Clinton presidency. America is held hostage, perhaps in great peril as well. 800-282-2882 if you want to be on the program. Once again, if you're just tuning in, you are listening to the most listened to radio show in Los Angeles. AM, FM, daytime, nighttime. It doesn't matter how you slice it. 1 in 10 people in Los Angeles, a prestigious 10 share has been achieved in 2 of our 3 broadcast hours. Another way of looking at this, we have doubled this radio show's audience in the last year in Los Angeles, in Riverside, in Anaheim. There are reports coming in from the rest of the country, too, which indicate that the story is going to be much the same. But it's a fact we are eminently proud of. And thank those of you in Los Angeles for making it possible, because you are the news. 1 in 10 listen to the Rush Limbaugh program on KFI AM 640 in Los Angeles between 9 a.m. and noon out there. Now, I said and have been reminding you for the longest time that one of the defendants in the Rodney King civil rights trial was communicating with me somewhat regularly during the trial. That defendant was Lawrence Powell. He never said, don't mention my name, but he never said, do mention my name. I never did, not wanting to get involved in the case, nor wanting to harm the case. He sent a letter following the jury verdict that I downloaded from CompuServe late Wednesday morning, about 2 a.m. And he said, go ahead and mention my name, if you wish. I wrote him back and I said, please double check that with your lawyer. This isn't over. You've got sentencing in August and you have appeal process ahead of you. He checked with his lawyer, wrote back, and said it's okay. I heard you this morning talking about my letter. Unfortunately, I was away from my computer, couldn't leave you a message. What I wrote is my feelings. My attorney and I have been talking for days trying to make some sense of the jury's decision. It is with great reservation and with no malice that I make those conclusions about the jury. Go ahead and read my letter. There is this letter that I'm going to read. I responded to this letter, and he has since responded to my response with a letter almost as long as the one I'm going to read to you. Both are fascinating. He's also expressed a desire to be on this show, has Officer Powell, and we'll probably do that. We'll probably have him on the show as I think about it. Just going to read the letter as he wrote it. He wrote it at around 11 o'clock in the morning, best I can tell, on the 20th of April. At least that's when he sent it to me via the electronic path on CompuServe. Dear Rush, I'll leave it up to your discretion if you wish to identify me as the defendant who wrote you letters on CompuServe during the trial. I don't mind if you do reveal it, if that becomes your desire. I sent you messages because I valued your opinions and insight and your entertainment. No glory in it for me, just blowing off some of the stress from this stuff. I've been following the comments of the jurors on the various news shows and in the paper. My attorney, Michael Stone, has also been given a lot of insight into the jurors' thoughts from the media reporters who interviewed these jurors. My first tendency is, of course, to refrain from condemning the jury's decision because that was the despicable act of the lynch mobs that forced me on trial again. What is apparent about this jury's decision is that it was the jury we feared. It was a jury created in the shadows of the riots and in the shadows of public outrage. Under protection of anonymity, they must have believed, whether conscious or subconsciously, that all people felt the verdicts were wrong. Why else would there have been riots? Why else would the politicians, especially the president, condemn the Ventura County or Simi Valley jury? The decision must have been wrong. One would only have to turn on the TV to see proof. Isn't that true? With obvious threats that there would be more riots if we were once again acquitted, how hard would it be to once again find reasonable doubt at the very least? Answer, if you're a coward, real hard to find and probably not worth the effort. Coward. Sour grapes for sure. However, I really believed I had a right to expect a jury of my peers to look at all the evidence in an intelligent manner with an open mind, like the first time in Ventura County. I just can't believe that's what occurred. Not after listening to the jurors' comments, not after knowing what evidence was presented, not knowing that I did not do anything wrong that night. It had nothing to do with emotional testimony, as you stated, Rush. It had to do with fear. It had to do with 12 people lacking the courage to come to a decision that would lead to more rioting. They may not have discussed that fear among themselves. That would have been wrong for them to do that, but can there be any doubt as to whether that fear was in their minds as they heard all the evidence and as they deliberated? Of course not. Consider these things the jury did. If you're just joining us, by the way, reading a letter from Lawrence Powell, convicted LAPD police officer, written to me on the 20th of this month after the verdicts had been rendered. Consider these things the jury did, Rush. They chose not to consider the testimony of both prosecution and defense use of force experts. Jury were given a jury instruction that basically told them they must judge our actions from the perspective of a reasonable police officer in the same situation with the same circumstances. They could not judge our actions from their own perspectives or experiences. So what they did was throw out the testimony of reasonable police officers and judged the tape without it. Did they call upon their training and experience in using force in dangerous situations of arresting a felony suspect? At the very least, the jury should have considered one of the views of the use of force experts from one of the opposing sides to aid them in determining what a reasonable police officer should do, but they didn't. They threw them both out. That's what Clymer and Kowalski, the government prosecutors, told the jurors to do in their closing arguments, to ignore the use of force experts. In disregarding the testimony of the government's use of force expert, they threw out his opinion that the first 32 seconds of the use of force were within LAPD policy. Instead, the jurors came to the conclusion that we had goaded King into getting up off the ground and charging me. King testified that the officers were chanting, quote, "What's up, nigger," unquote, or maybe it was killer, he said. He wasn't sure. He said he got up and ran because he thought we were going to kill him. Well, no other witness, not even his best friend, who also has a multi-million-dollar lawsuit against the city, testified that they heard any chanting or racial slurs, nor could they be heard on the enhanced audio version of the tape. So no evidence to back up the conclusion the jurors came to, except a statement from Clymer in his final argument that that's what happened, was ever heard. The one black female juror from Orange County, a middle-class conservative neighboring county of Los Angeles, said she was there to do what was right. She was the same juror accused by an excused juror of saying, quote, "They kept blacks off the jury in Simi, but that's not going to happen this time," unquote. Motions to have her excused were denied. She said the jurors jumped for joy when the verdicts were reached. Quote, "We cheered and hugged when we reached unanimous verdicts," another juror said. Most jurors are not happy when they have to convict. Don't people usually cheer and hug when they are happy about reaching a goal? When was this goal to convict set? They dismissed Melanie Singer's tears and testimony. They had requested it to be read back so they would have an outline of the events that transpired as they deliberated. Now, this is a key part of this, folks, because Melanie Singer was called by the defense. The only time I responded to any of Larry Powell's notes to me was the night I got a note from him saying that they were going to call Melanie Singer the next day. And I wrote back and said, "What are you guys doing? She's going to say that you beat him in the head 5 times. She said that in the first trial. What are you putting her on as your witness for?" And it was because they had a witness they thought could refute her. Apparently, she didn't see what she saw, and they wanted to prove that. They maintain to this day that King was never struck in the head, of course, but Melanie Singer's testimony was rife with tears and emotion. That's why I thought that the prosecution intended on focusing on emotion in this trial as a means of getting the jury's hearts, and I still think that that was a part of it, despite Mr. Powell's insistence that it wasn't, but he was there and I wasn't. But this business of calling her, let me read this passage from his letter again, because it indicates they still don't think they made a mistake calling Melanie Singer. The jury dismissed Melanie Singer's tears and testimony. That didn't have any effect on him, Powell says here in this note. The jury requested her testimony. Remember, the judge would not let the jury see transcripts of her testimony. They had requested it to be read back so that they would have an outline of the events that transpired as they deliberated. So I guess they feel that they refuted Melanie Singer, the defense. The jury, we are told, experimented in the jury room and conducted their own recreations. They reenacted the first blow as King charged me. One juror put Brasino's boot on and stomped around. Jurors are prohibited from doing such recreations and experiments, though, Mr. Limbaugh. They're supposed to deliberate only on what was presented in court. No one has spoken as to what they found as the intent. One juror said he saw one blow as the one which convicted me. Another said the first
Scott Motor Company has been selling and servicing fine motor cars since 1922. And right now they have the best selection of fine Cadillacs and Pontiacs that they've offered in many years. You can have the elegance of a 93 Cadillac or the excitement of a new Pontiac at a special deal. Scott offers rebates up to $2,000 or 4.9% APR financing. Get all the details at
illegals. 25% of all
prove intent. You may find intent based on circumstantial evidence. Now, this is another key. During the setup to this trial and during the trial, the point I kept making was the difficulty of a conviction on this charge. Willful violation of someone's civil rights, as opposed to the charges that were brought forth in the first trial. And I said that what's difficult here is that the jurors are going to have convinced that in their minds, these defendants were pummeling Rodney King for the sole purpose of violating his civil rights. They were trying him, they were convicting him, and punishing him there on the street. And they were doing it to violate his civil rights. And I said the difficulty in proving this is you've got to get inside people's heads and know what they were thinking, and there aren't too many people who can do that. Well, the judge handled that with his instruction to the jury, and Mr. Powell here is expressing it when he says, the jury instructions stated, quote, "It is almost impossible to get inside the mind of the defendants to prove intent, so you may find intent based on circumstantial evidence." Well, that made it easy. If you can look at circumstantial evidence and then say, yeah, I think that those guys intended to violate his civil rights. If you're told as the jury you can do that by the judge, then that really wipes out one of the most difficult aspects of this, of a conviction on this charge. There is another page and a half here, and I got to take a break. So let's break now, and we'll come back and finish the letter on the other side of the break.
You're listening to the EIB Network.
Hello, this is Pat Robertson with some very, very exciting news. I know there are people in this country who are interested in doing two things. Number one, they want to be involved in the free enterprise system. They would like to have some supplemental income, possibly a business on their own where they weren't working for somebody else. And yet, the level of entry has been so high, they haven't been able to get in on it. I'm going to tell you about a program called American Benefits Plus that will let you participate in the free enterprise system.
Now you can go into business with no upfront cost. We're looking for leaders, managers, and trainers with entrepreneurial drive. Call 1-800-359-1226 about American Benefits Plus. This dynamic opportunity to be your own boss is yours now. Independent lead sharing program coming soon. Timing is critical. Get involved now. American Benefits Plus is endorsed by Dr. Pat Robertson. Call 1-800-359-1226 24 hours. That's 1-800-359-1226.
Dear Hooked on Phonics, in the first grade, my grandson attended a special reading program. It didn't help. In the second and third grades, he was enrolled in a special reading class at school. This didn't help either. Finally, we ordered Hooked on Phonics, and his grades went from C's and D's to A's and B's. Thanks to Hooked on Phonics, my grandson got the help he needed. Signed CS, Jamaica, New York. For Hooked on Phonics plus SRA Reading Laboratories, call 1-800-ABCDEFG.
You've heard the excuses before.
But honest, it was only... And right now, they have the best selection of fine Cadillacs and Pontiacs that they've offered in many years. You can have the elegance of a 93 Cadillac or the excitement of a new Pontiac at a special deal. Scott offers rebates up to $2,000 or 4.9% APR financing. Get all the details at Scott Motor Company on the Highway 70 bypass across from the Holiday Inn. And when you're there, see the 1993 all-new Fleetwood Cadillac rear-wheel drive. Learn about the safety of a Cadillac, the performance of a Cadillac, especially the North Star system. A motor so dependable, the first tune-up is recommended at 100,000 miles. In that large selection of motor vehicles, you'll also see a large selection of minivans. You know, Scott Motor Company has the car or minivan that you're thinking about. So visit Scott Motor Company, Highway 70 bypass across from the Holiday Inn, Goldsboro.
I have spring and summer ladies fashion ready for your selection. Sportswear by Joyce, Tan J, Don Kenny, and others. Dresses including brands by Andrea Gale, H.L. Miller, and Leslie Faye, and a whole lot more. Swimsuits by DeWeese, windsuits by Casual Isle, spring and summer fashions and accessories, as well as shoes and handbags ready for you at Kleinerd's. In the Wayne Plaza, 1800 block of East Ash Street, Goldsboro. Open Monday through Saturday, 10 a.m. till 6 p.m.
Where can you get all the pizza, pasta, salad, and dessert that you care to eat for one low price? The Village Inn Pizza Parlor on Berkeley Boulevard, Goldsboro. The Village Inn announces its Monday and Tuesday night manager special. Monday and Tuesday nights only. The all-you-can-eat buffet. It's only $3.39. Every Monday and Tuesday night from 4:30 to 8 o'clock, the buffet is bargain priced at only $3.39. And it's only at one place. The Village Inn Pizza Parlor, 503 North Berkeley Boulevard, Goldsboro, where pizza is always in good taste.
We're the talk of the town, 1150 WGBR.
This is just quite simply the hottest radio show in America, folks, and that means in the world, for all we know, the universe. Bound to be places in the universe they haven't even invented radio yet, so we know we're being truthful about that. This is the Rush Limbaugh program, known also as the Limbaugh Institute for Advanced Conservative Studies. We now resume reading a lengthy letter written to me after the jury verdicts were rendered in the LAPD civil rights trial, Rodney King. Juror Lawrence Powell, the author of the letter, who wrote me regularly during the trial. I want to just go back here and retrace a couple steps here before resuming the letter. Remember now, the press keeps saying that the case may have turned on Melanie Singer's testimony. She is the California Highway Patrol woman who was originally chasing King, and who claims that Lawrence Powell beat King 5 times in the head. She was called as a defense witness, and she cried on the stand as she described this horrible thing she says she saw. Lawrence Powell, in many letters to me, says, I never hit him in the head. It never happened. She didn't see it. She thinks that she saw it. And we've got witnesses that we're going to call to prove that many people in traumatic situations see things that they didn't see. In his letter, talking about the jury, he says, the jury dismissed Melanie Singer's tears and testimony. To this day, this is a crucial, interesting point to me, that the defense still doesn't think that Melanie Singer was what sunk them. They really think that they were dead in the water from the get-go because the jury was just afraid to come in with anything other than a conviction. More and more comments as I resume now the letter. More and more comments are being made by the jurors every day. It all just solidifies our position that we were dead in the water before the trial began. This jury was going to do the right thing and correct the problems caused by the Ventura County jury. If all they needed was an excuse, they got that from the government arguments. In fact, everything they're saying they found is word for word from Steve Clymer's arguments, the government prosecutor. They say over and over that they paid no attention to any evidence other than the videotape. It's pretty scary to be judged by 12 cowards with no integrity to listen to evidence that easily allows a finding of reasonable doubt if one is desired. Instead, they relied on a tape taken from 150 feet away on a second-floor balcony that shows only where the blows landed. It doesn't show any emotions, such as fear and frustration, with a restraining technique that wasn't working to keep an unsearched felony suspect on the ground as he continued to try and get up again and again. It doesn't show death. It doesn't have experience with parolees attacking officers in order to keep from going back to jail. It can't show you what was in our minds. It doesn't show what happened in the real time that we experienced. And it wasn't face-to-face and toe-to-toe with a buffed-out man who had led police on a 7.8-mile chase, failed to comply with verbal orders from uniformed policemen pointing guns at him, exhibited bizarre behavior, including dancing, laughing, and running around on all fours, threw myself and Brasino off his back, rose up and failed to fall back down after 2 applications of 50,000 volts at 1 milliamps, at 0.1 milliamps from the taser, and then made those actions and movements seen on the videotape amid shouting from the officers for him to stay on the ground, get down on the ground. I wonder if those jurors who failed to consider the evidence that the Ventura County jurors considered are proud of the civic duty they did. They could have considered it and found a different explanation for what the evidence points to, but they did not even consider it. I'd like to see if they could face my family's tears with the decision they made. I'd like to see if they could look at the cover of Newsweek magazine and smile. Can they explain their decision to the officers out there who no longer will be enthusiastically enforcing the laws that protect all of us? You thought they were mad and low in morale before? Well, now I have captains telling me they're through. I couldn't get a captain to even look in my direction before. You see, a police officer knows that some people do not understand all that's involved in using force on a suspect. There are many factors that may not be known to the average person and thus give them a perspective that a use of force was wrong. If they were told of these circumstances or laws or policies that govern use of force, they would then be able to judge the use of force as being right and proper. Now, the officers concede that if there is a loud, ignorant outcry about a use of force, no explanations will be considered. Instead, the involved officers will be tried until the verdict is guilty, and the petty little politicians and civil wrongs groups will shut up. Hopefully, I have some appellate issues that will be found in my favor, and I won't join my work products in prison. I can't even picture being put in prison because a squeaky wheel needed oil, because an outspoken minority portion of the population was louder than the underspoken majority of the population, because people who weren't interested in justice demanded justice in their redefined terms, because politicians were seeking politically correct positions in election years, because a small but loud part of the ghetto community of L.A. wants everything handed to them on a silver platter garnished with $100 bills, instead of working for it as Americans have done before we even became America. P.S. I guess maybe we should have just burned him out of his car.
When you think of sending a gift, you probably think of flowers or candy, but now there's something new. Send a book, a great new gift idea as near as your phone. Just call 1-800-793-SEND and we'll send just about any book you like to anyone you like. How about sending Rush Limbaugh's The Way Things Ought to Be to a friend or relative? Now there's a great gift idea.
1-800-793-SEND.
Send a book. 1-800-793-SEND.
Time for another WGBR GGO update brought to you by Gene Taylor Chevrolet Geo and Belk of Goldsboro. In a moment, the latest from Tony Rigsby.
Some car dealers offer no-hassle deals as a one-day event. Other dealers are brave enough to offer no-hassle deals for a whole weekend. At Gene Taylor Chevrolet Geo, for months now and in the future, you can be sure of the best deals possible with a no-hassle way of buying the new or used car or truck of your choice. The prices are posted, so you can be sure all rebates and allowances are already figured in. Get the best deal possible, the no-hassle way, at Gene Taylor Chevrolet Geo, Highway 70 east of Goldsboro.
It's Founders Day at Belk's in Berkeley Mall, Belk's biggest store-wide sale of the season, where you'll save on soaks for misses. You'll find 33 to 40% off ladies' bathing suits by Catalina, Serena, Gabar, Mainstream, and Sassafras. Your choice of junior tops and shorts and cotton and soap, $15.99 to $19.99. Spring handbags, 35% off. Use your Belk's Charge or 30, 60, 90-day card and save during the Founders Day sale of Belk's in Berkeley Mall, Goldsboro.
Wind continues to ripple through the Forest Oaks Country Club course on this first day of the 55th edition of the GGO. The veteran Tom Hertzer is our leader on the course right now at 5 under par through 17 holes. Rick Llewellyn is 2 shots back at 3 under through 13. Then there's a big group at 2 under, including veteran John Mahaffey, who played well despite the winter-like conditions.
An extremely difficult day to play, basically because not only did the wind blow and gust, but it blew in a direction that makes a lot of the very long, difficult holes playing a crosswind.
Joining Mahaffey at 2 under par, Dick Mast, Lenny Clements, Dave Edwards, Joel Edwards, Peter Jacobson, and Jay Haas. At the Greater Greensboro Open, Tony Rigsby for WGBR.
Brought to you by Belk of Goldsboro and Gene Taylor Chevrolet Geo. Join us throughout the GGO for hourly updates on WGBR.
The Embers for North Carolina.
Whenever people get together around a Tar Heel state, there's a North Carolina style in the way they celebrate. From Murphy to Manio, City Street or a country mile, you'll find people enjoying the good life. North Carolina style.
Is golf your game? I'm Jackie Gore of the Embers, inviting you to test your skills on some of the nation's top golf courses. From the mountains to the sandhills, the Piedmont to the coast, birdies fly on more than 400 beautiful courses right here at home. So next time you get golf fever, try a great golf getaway North Carolina style.
Put on your best North Carolina smile. Celebrate the good times. North Carolina.
Sponsored by the North Carolina Association of Broadcasters and 1-800-VISIT-NC.
This is Rush Limbaugh on the Talk of the Town, 1150 WGBR.
Rush Limbaugh. I know you're going to dig this. Rush Limbaugh.
Having more fun than a human being should be. During the break, Bo Snerdley said, okay, you've read the letter. What would you say to somebody who said, yeah, but he still used excessive force? Well, all I can do is tell you what I have said on previous occasions, and that is like everybody who's seen that videotape. I said stop at some point. What Powell is attempting to convey in these letters to me is what was in their minds, the cops' minds, as they're going through this. And he says that's what nobody seems to care about or want to learn, understand. Now, in his letter to me authorizing me or granting me permission to read this letter, he amplifies a little bit about how this whole thing began. And since I was asked the question, what about this excessive force? Don't forget what he says there. They took 2 jolts, 0.1 milliamps from a taser, was throwing 2 cops off his back, was running around dancing, all fours, appeared to be unaffected by the use of force. Just telling you what was in their minds. I want to read a little portion of the most recent letter, which describes how this whole thing happened, because that will give you an idea of what was in his head, or what he was thinking about as the call came in. On March 3rd, 1991, when the California Highway Patrol called for help as they were chasing Rodney King and his 2 ex-con friends, parentheses, which in itself was a violation of King's parole, end parentheses, through the streets of my division at 60 to 80 miles per hour, I never had another thought but to go to their assistance. When Rodney King continued to not yield to 3 police cars' lights and sirens, and finally picked the place to stop 7.8 miles later, I still had no thoughts of going the other way and abandoning my duty to the citizens. When he got out of his car after repeated orders from the California Highway Patrol officers, and he laughed, pointed at the helicopter, danced around, shook his butt at Melanie Singer, pranced around on his hands and knees, I was there waiting to assist in arresting him for, at the very least, evading or running away from the police in the car. I was the one who Sergeant Coon selected to approach first and handcuff this muscular, 6'3", 265-pound, uncooperative suspect who was exhibiting almost every symptom of PCP intoxication I'd ever seen. I was the one who was thrown off King's back and landed on my butt, only to see King getting to his feet. I was the one King charged after twice being tasered, although we all firmly believed that this ex-con remembered the female officer, Melanie Singer, was behind him just before he turned around and discovered me there instead. I was the one who dealt the most blows because he selected me to fight with. The citizens of L.A. would never expect us to have to fight fair in a street fight. If I lose, so do they. There's a big story about the type of training and tools the LAPD supplied us with that night that all leads to one thing. We're the scapegoats from the administrative fraud perpetrated by the LAPD and LA city government. Why there were so many blows and why they almost didn't work in the arrest of King is the result of a lack of realistic training by LAPD and a lack of a better way. It is far, however, from being criminal. We were indicted within 1 week of the incident, the fastest indictment by a grand jury in history. The proceedings were rife with prosecutors and judicial misconduct, but since there was not a negative result, it became moot. The federal proceedings were a bit more honest, but far from being conducted in a manner a U.S. citizen would want and expect. Witnesses were threatened and intimidated. We were lied to. We were outgunned financially and in manpower, but we had the truth, which can overcome all these things. I hope it will also withstand these convictions, because I did my job and should not be going to jail for protecting people according to LAPD procedures and the law. Just because it wasn't pretty doesn't mean it's wrong. Neither is a military strike, but when people refuse to act civilized, the force used to make them or break them is always a regression to violence. This may be coming close to what many people say is punishment, but that's not what I'm saying. If a bad guy walks out of a bank with a gun and points it at a policeman, he tries to do everything he can to prevent having to take the violent act of killing or seriously injuring that person. The bad guy isn't acting civilized, and the response is violence, but it's wrong. If there's a better way, it needs to be found. If there's a better way for us to control a resisting suspect like King was that night, let it be known and taught. But don't think those kinds of incidents can be solved by making us the scapegoats for the LAPD management and city politicians bungling. That's what happened to us. We have the videotape with enhanced audio that allows one to hear the taser going at various times when King tries to rise again and again. One can hear my shouts of "Get down, stay on the ground." And Coons shouts of the same thing. You can hear Brasino yelling for another taser, which is very contrary to what he professes to have happened. We have a registered and enhanced videotape of the blurry portion of the original tape. It was created by the FBI. It shows in a clearer view what happened in that portion. No head blows. The prosecutors tried to keep that tape from being admitted into evidence by us. They said it wasn't reliable technology. They had no plans to use it. We said, too bad we got it from you in discovery. It helps us, and you try convincing the judge it shouldn't be admitted. They gave up trying to sway us, got it admitted themselves to avoid the embarrassment of us bringing it in instead. They only showed it once and briefly as they were laying the evidentiary foundation. We showed it as often as we could. There is much documentary evidence supporting training procedures, medical evidence of PCP intoxication, etc., etc. There is so much to this case that I find it so unbelievable the jury couldn't find reasonable doubt if they had looked at the evidence. It was no fluke that the Ventura County jury acquitted us. We have been in constant contact with them since the state trial, and their last words just before day one of the federal trial were, "Uphold the honor and integrity of the Simi jury." And then he goes on to say how he would appreciate appearing on this show to say all this himself and get this stuff out. So there you have it. That's the last 2 days, the last 3 days actually, the communications I've received from Lawrence Powell, one of the two convicted defendants in the LAPD civil rights violation trial of Rodney King. Let's take a break here rather than transition to phone calls. When we take a break, we'll take that break now. We'll come back and resume with your phone calls. Those of you who have been on hold, your patience will be rewarded. If you have any comments on what you've just heard in the form of these two letters from Lawrence Powell, feel free. Whatever else you wish to discuss, feel free to talk about that too. Come back and get started with you right after this.